So the singularity, is it coming? And do we want it to? I don't know. Immortality by 2045? I think I'll say no, thank you. And believe me, I've been thinking a lot about mortality lately, and I think in many ways it's a good thing to realize that your time here may be limited, because then you spend it wisely. And if we all had this notion of just sort of an everlasting, never-ending opportunity, I think we may not be quite as happy with that as we think we would be. I don't know about that, but I think Ray Kurzweil is definitely onto something. We are creating technologies that are going to be in a position to increasingly control our lives. Look around you now. When was the last time you were in a store or in an office and you tried to do something and the human operator of a computer said, I can't do that, the computer won't let me? Imagine when we get to the point where you're trying to order food or trying to do really anything and the computer says, no, sorry, you can't. All right, we've got Tony and Tiffany both holding. We'll get to your calls in just a moment. Just wanted to wrap things up here with Robert. And let's see, Greg Nikolettos, our guest, you were saying just before the break about a professor who had said something meaningful about... Yeah.
Professor Hugo de Harris basically states that, you know, the world will be split into two lots. So you really have the cosmists that he defines, which are the people that really back this artificial intelligence, back technology, back progress, and say to man at the end of the day, look, let's just see where we can take this, and if immortality happens to be along the way, well, let's embrace it. And when we build these, you know, godlike creatures, and I use godlike creatures in, you know, hyphenated tones, we'll deal with that problem when we get to it. The flip side to that is why should we even go attempt to build a strong artificial intelligence that can compromise mankind? I mean, to me, I don't mind if someone obviously outperforms me, but I'm not going to sit and invest in a robot culture that can ultimately, you know, destroy humanity. So.
Well, and take a look right now at what is happening in Japan. If we needed evidence that when we just go running willy-nilly down a particular trail that we could create something with enormous destructive potential, what better evidence than the nuclear power plants right now and the disasters that have happened there? Hey, listen, I want to thank Robert in Texas for the call. Let's go to Tony, who's been holding since before the break. Hi, Tony. You're on with Greg Nikolettos. Hello.
Hello.
Great to hear from you.
Hello?
What's on your mind? Yes.
Hi. Well, first of all, I love your show, and you know I listen to it a lot. I know that you are a Christian. My mom was a Christian, and so you know I know that sort of theology works really well for you guys. But I guess my comment was more on what you asked earlier about whether young people would follow this sort of new technology as a new religion. And I kind of wanted to offer a little bit of perspective on young people. I'm a tattoo artist, and so I deal with a lot of young people every day, and I, you know, have them in my chair for a couple hours every day, and we get into some philosophical conversations. For a long time, the youth have been going sort of down this path where they have rejected like old theologies like Christianity or, you know, all those like, you know, religions that have been set in place and sort of rejected all that and gone more towards like the New Age sort of way of thinking, New Age spirituality. So it's not a total rejection of spirituality, but it's sort of like a shift into that vein of things. And I don't know if you guys are aware of like the Burning Man festival and
sure.
You know, like all of that, and all that is like fueled by this like electronic music and things like that, where kids they really believe that for them that is their spirituality, like going to these events and
raves
sort of, achieving these sort of like altered states of consciousness.
Is it right? Is it right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Totally,
Look,
you know?
I'm not that old actually. I still listen to Tech House. So I was actually in the rave culture when I was in my 20s.
The family was a huge part of bringing that about, like electronic music. I mean, they invented synthesizers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Ray Kurzweil, I should point out. Yeah, Ray Kurzweil, of course, is a musician, and even back in the 1960s was creating artificially created techno-type music. So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let me ask you this, though, Tony. What do you think that the people who sit in your tattoo chair, if they hit 2045, let's say that was just like next week, do you think that they would say, yeah, let me go for it. I'm going to merge with the machine, merge with my iPhone, merge with my Facebook account, whatever it might be, and let me live forever and not really have a qualm about the spiritual implications of doing that?
I mean, I think the whole psychological preset has already been set in place with, movies like The Matrix, movies like Ghost in the Shell. It's a famous Japanese animation. Things like that. They illustrate sort of this sort of this altered state sort of thing where people melt with this sort of matrix of digital information that flows through the cosmos. And I think, that's what a lot of young people think about spirituality nowadays and about, where
what
we're
about
headed.
you? Let me ask you, Tony, would you merge with the machine if it meant immortality? Would you go down that road?
Well, I mean, I started going to those kind of things when I was really young, and I did think that way at one point, but now I've sort of gone more down the road of Buddhism and stuff like that, where I think that my soul is eternal anyways, and once I leave my body, I will melt into a matrix, but it's not going to be an artificial matrix. It's going to be, the cosmic matrix, and so it's a very thin line between the two ideologies, but there's definitely, I just wanted to illustrate, I guess.
Can I ask your age, Tony? Can I ask how old you are, Tony?
I'm 28.
You're 28, okay, and so you're working with a lot of people who are considerably younger, I would assume. And right. I think you're right. I think that the movies and the culture is portraying this as hip and cool. I've talked a lot of times even about teenage girls in Twilight, of all sort of tacky things, but this notion that somehow merging with the other worldly stuff is a cool thing. And even then, even if you try to say, well, hey, Ray Kurzweil tries to make it all about technology, but maybe it's about spirit, those girls are going to say to you, well, yeah, but that's cool too. So I think you've shared some important insights. Thanks for listening to the show, and thanks for calling in. I want to see if I can squeeze in one more call here from Tiffany, listening in Texas. Tiffany, thanks for being so patient, and let's get your thoughts in the last minute or two we have here.
Hi, I'm not sure if you guys already addressed this. I was a little late coming into the show, getting off work, but I recently listened to a podcast called Econ Talk, and it's done by a man named Russ Roberts at the George Mason University, and he's a real Austrian economist. He likes to have a lot of different guests on, and he recently had Robin Hanson, who is I believe he's a physicist, and he does a lot of work in the whole technological singularity idea. I know he's done some writing on it. So Russ Roberts had him on, and Professor Roberts is Jewish, and this Robin Hanson guy seemed to be, the really scientifically based atheist sort of like humanity. This life is all we get. And yes.
Well, quickly, because we're coming to the end of just what was the point that he was making that got your attention?
The point that Robin Hanson was making was that singularity is inevitable, and that people need to invest now in land and resources that they can't invest in labor so much because technological singularity is inevitable. And so I thought you might want to check that out. It's a really, really thought-provoking conversation.
Now, was he proposing that this would be a good thing or a bad thing, that when we merge with our machines, is this something to look forward to or something to dread?
He seemed a little excited about it, and he was also pretty kind of stoic about it. Like, you may as well prepare for it and get excited about it since there's no way to avoid it. And Russ Roberts was pretty much against the idea because he does believe in the soul and, God and everything.
Tiffany, I think you pegged it, that's what it's going to come down to, is whether you believe in those things or not. And I think Tony, who just called, also pegged it too, that if you really do believe that there is an immortal soul that transcends all of this and survives beyond it, then you don't need to merge with machines. That even sounds kind of creepy. Why would I want my soul in a machine if my soul is so much more than that? Hey, thank you to all of the callers who've called called in. Joe, Robert, Tony, Tiffany, thank you all for checking in with us and giving us your thoughts on this. Greg Nikolettos, want to encourage you to keep up your good work. You have a new movie coming out?
Yeah, we do, actually. What we are tackling is what the last two listeners actually brought up was...
We're totally out of time, though, so I'm going to send people to your website at We the People Will Not Be Chipped. When your movie comes out, we're going to get you back on, Greg. Thank you. I love you. God bless you. You're doing great work. Computer won't let me. Imagine when we get to the point where you're trying to order food or trying to do really anything and the computer says no, sorry, you can't. All right, we've got Tony and Tiffany both holding. We'll get to your calls in just a moment. Just wanted to wrap things up here with Robert. And let's see, Greg Nikolettos, our guest, you were saying just before the break about a professor who had said something meaningful about... Yeah, Professor
Hugo de Harris basically states that the world will be split into two lots. So you really have the cosmist that he defines.
Then you spend it wisely. And if we all had this notion of just sort of an everlasting, never-ending opportunity, I think we may not be quite as happy with that as we think we would be. I don't know about that. But I think Ray Kurzweil is definitely... So the singularity, is it coming? And do we want it to? I don't know. Immortality by 2045? I think I'll say no, thank you. And believe me, I've been thinking a lot about mortality lately, and I think in many ways it's a good thing to realize that your time here may be limited because onto something, we are creating technologies that are going to be in a position to increasingly control our lives. Look around you now. When was the last time you were in a store or in an office and you tried to do something and the human operator of a computer said, I can't do that, the computer